Hi, I'm back and a little bit sick, but I want to talk about the DLC trailer because, oh my god. Now, one of the more important things that you have to do while watching this trailer and trying to figure things out is obviously to have the captions on. So we have captions on right now. As you can see, that seems like Melena's feet. She seems like she's gonna be coming along, or maybe she isn't. Maybe it's even just you wearing an outfit that came from Melena. Who knows? It's basically been confirmed that we're going into the egg to check out what's going on with Miquella, and it seems like we are going into the Shadow of the Erdtree, as mentioned in the DLC title. And the Shadow of the Erdtree appears to be where they're putting all of the war criminals, basically the people who were defeated in the war against the Erdtree, which is really interesting. A certain character says they were never saints, they just happened to be on the losing side of a war, and I kind of confirmed by listening to this line and then the last line in the trailer that that's definitely Miquella saying that. So it is very possible that Miquella is going to be a companion, or at least not just, a mysterious, unknown figure that you're going to have to chase after. It seems like Miquella has a lot of dialogue in this game, and the fun part is the voice actor has been revealed for Miquella, and she is fantastic. I actually the last time I heard her in a game was in Killer Frequency, which is one of my favorite indie games. I'm going to play a clip of the Miquella voice actress talking right here.
Does Gallows Creek have a stray cat problem or something?
Not since the rats moved in. Anyway, you ready to do the pre-flight checks?
Seriously? Do we have to do these checks every time? And do you have to call them that?
Reggie pays us to check the equipment before each show, and he pays us to call it a pre-flight check. But if you're sure you don't want to...
It is obviously very different from how you're hearing Miquella in the trailer. But anyway, what you might observe in a lot of these imagery is there's a lot of fire. So obviously people who were acting against the Erdtree would have had a lot of fire. I would say that this particular creature right here has fire, but it also has the naturalistic horns that Misbegotten have, so that's pretty interesting. The mask is kind of unique, but the horns definitely harken back to people like Mog and Morgoth and all that. Another interesting character that's shown here is one that kind of resembles Morgoth. Now, not too much, obviously, there's a lot of ways that he kind of more resembles a Bloodborne creature, monster, horror person. He gives me very Ludwig vibes. I don't know that much about Bloodborne, but I have seen, videos, and I have seen, gameplay. And I know that Ludwig has this really sad-looking, monster vibe. And he wears this beautiful, noble cloth, and he clearly has this very royal vibe to him, and he's clearly very powerful as well. So this might have been another child of the line who, unlike Morgoth, felt very betrayed by the Erdtree, and so fought back, and he seems to wield lightning, possibly dragon lightning. It seems very similar to how a lot of the dragons would use their lightning. Another element of this character, who kind of looks like Morgoth, is that he is clearly lion-themed, and it might look like a really unusual lion, but this is the kind of lion that kind of looks like how lions look like in, old art. And it's also if you've ever seen that taxidermied lion that, got really messed up from the front, but from the side looks pretty good. It's that as well. It has that element of a really fucked up lion, which makes sense, given the lion imagery of Godfrey, who is very revered, even though he was technically, sent away by America. He's so messed up that he has to, literally close his own mouth with a weird hand. Very interesting character. I can't wait to see more of him. Now, of course, the star of the show in this trailer is Messmer The Impaler. Now, we know his name is Messmer The Impaler because, one, he says it's Messmer's flame, and two, because he's in the pre-order pack as a figure, and his name is Messmer The Impaler. Congratulations. And oh my gosh, Messmer is the son of Marika. He says so himself. He's like, Mother, why would you... Basically, for those of you who don't quickly understand Old English, he's basically saying hey Mom, why did you give this guy lordship? If he has no light of gold. Which is funny because Messmer has two elements of blasphemy to the Erdtree. He has a snake and he has fire, and yet he still has the grace of gold. He has a golden eye, and because he says mother, and he has like the 𝓛𝓸𝓻𝓮 hair, that means that he is Miquella and Malenia's sibling. He is Miquella and Malenia's brother. So that's really interesting. And he does have like the flaming red hair of 𝓛𝓸𝓻, and he seems to have, I don't know if that's just how he's designed, but maybe he also has the deformation that all the other kids have. Weirdly skinny, he walks a certain way. It's like kind of like, it's giving royalty inbreeding, which, you know, technically all the other kids had as well, so. It's also interesting to note that his fire has like elements of like the thorns, if you remember the thorns. He has like the thorn elements of the Bloodstar worshippers, those people who use like the thorn sorceries, if you remember. That I find really interesting. And it kind of also looks like the Deathblight. So like I'm wondering if they're related at all or if they just kind of look similar. But he has like Deathblight elements to it as well. Like the fire that he wields has really weird like dirt, I guess, like texture to it that reminds me of the Deathblight. Anyway, we see a lot of really cool, like, new tricks, new skins, new moves, new weapons, etc., new enemies. It's great. And the one that really interests me is the fact that this one character is able to do some interesting magic. It reminds me a little of Sleep, and it is like she's surrounded by butterflies. Now, I'm not sure if I'm just being misled by this one short clip, but this guy seems like he's a godskin noble, or a godskin something. He's certainly something. But, you know, again, these are all just like very short images of the bosses that are in this game, so that's really interesting. And finally, we hear Miquella here at the end as well. Like I said before, it sounds like his voice is exactly the same as the one at the beginning, explaining the war and how they're not saints, they're just on the they just, you know, are on the losing side of a war. And the cool thing about this one reveal of Miquella is that clearly he is like fully grown. He is like the skinny guy. He's no longer a child. He's no longer child size as far as we can tell. And he is basically welcoming you into the Shadow of the Erdtree. Now, the trailer asks the question, what is kind Miquella doing in this place? And I'm fascinated by that because it kind of implies that Miquella is trying to help the people there as well. Because it's been shown that Miquella has a lot of like compassion for different creatures, but he also is very manipulative and clever. I like the idea that he's both. Like, he's not just pretending to be kind so that he can get something out of it. I think he is both kind, that he cares about people, but he also wants something out of it at the same time because he is a royal. He did do power grabs before. He is very wise. So I would think that there's a reason as well why he came into this shadow and why he chooses to be there. And it kind of runs with a theory that I made like a year ago that it was within his plan to, you know, to kind of not necessarily be kidnapped, but to be in a certain place where Mog kidnapping him doesn't necessarily mess it up. I guess my original theory was that they work together, but ultimately what I'm trying to say is that I think Miquella will manipulate the player character, the Tarnished, into doing something that he wants, and I'm very excited for that. I am also very excited for the fact that the tweet where they put up the trailer, it says, "In the land of shadow, Miquella awaits the return of his promised lord." That sounds like you can romance Miquella. It just sounds like it. I know, probably not. It's still possible though, like we did it with Ranni. It would be interesting if Miquella was the only other romance option other than Ranni, which is so funny. I think that's also interesting because it is said that Miquella uses love as a weapon. He is dangerous because love is his weapon of choice, or like he is dangerous because he is very good at manipulating love. And so that'll be very interesting as well. I still stand by the idea that Miquella is generally a compassionate, like what they say about him being kind is true, but I also think that he has a very hidden agenda and that he's much more clever, much more wise, and much more dangerous than people give him credit for. And I'm very excited for more Miquella. I'm absolutely excited. So in summary, my overall thoughts about this DLC is, you know, people have guessed that we would be going into like a dream, and it isn't necessarily a dream, but it does work out that this place is an other place other than, you know, the lands between. This seems to be a land down under or something. It seems to be in the shadow of the Erdtree. Because the Erdtree has so much light, the shadow is like its alternate realm where it seems like all of the people who acted against the Erdtree have been sent. and there seems to be wardens or some people who are like keeping them there or keeping them trapped there. And it seems like Miquella has access to that place and has interest in that place for some strange reason. And I'm fascinated to know why. There seems to be a new brother, Marika's son, that even though he bears like 2 elements of blasphemy against the Erdtree, he still has the grace of gold, and he still seems to, at least in his mind, be serving the will of Marika, or at least like puts a lot of stock in the will of Marika, that he is offended that a Tarnished became a lord because the Tarnished don't have the grace of gold. I like that it has almost like a Bloodborne vibe more than it had the Dark Souls vibe, which Elden Ring original had. And with this one horrible boss with the thing impaling his eye, it kind of feels like Sekiro too, doesn't it? I also love that at the end here, Miquella says, touch the withered arm, rather than my withered arm. So it kind of runs with the idea that people had that he is not the body in the cocoon. Now, this could also just be a language thing, like maybe he's just like, I do not identify with this body that I used to own or something. But either way, it's interesting because it is clearly a portal to the shadow where Miquella seems to be leading you. And he says, I will not be far behind, may we meet again. So obviously we're going to meet Miquella again. It's going to be very exciting. One more thing I want to talk about Miquella and his role in the world of Elden Ring is that they say that he uses love to shrive clean the hearts of men, and that there is nothing more terrifying. Shrive meaning to hear the confession of, to assign penance to, and absolve. So he's trying to absolve certain people, so it might be that he's there to absolve the people who have acted against the Erdtree, although it seems like he himself wasn't really down with what the Erdtree was standing for at the time, or maybe at least what the ruling powers of the Golden Order were standing for at the time, even if the Erdtree itself seems to be more neutral, I would say. So maybe his role is to redeem certain people, certain enemies of the Erdtree. But the fact that that would be terrifying is absolutely fascinating to me. And I also wonder, because I mentioned that Messmer is wielding a harmful fire that the Erdtree would not have appreciated, but since they are in the shadow, what if all light sources have a different meaning now? What if the light sources are good because they are lights in the shadow? Or not necessarily good, but kind of in contrast to shadow. So Messmer is justified in having the fire because he is technically shedding light in the shadow of the Erdtree, and the rules are different here. Either Messmer is still working for the Erdtree or the Golden Order, or, still faithful to them, or he believes that he is better than them in some way, or he actually rebelled, but he's still in his mind kind of justified it, and still believes in the power of Marika, and that's why he's asking about her. Or maybe, he's just against the Erdtree altogether, and that's why he's in the shadow. That's why he was thrown there alongside other war criminals. And the unnamed lion guy, the really sad-looking one, as I said before, he seems to be part of Godfrey's line. He even has the golden hair. You can see all of the elements that make him part of Godfrey's line, but he turned out to be a misbegotten. And so either he was cast out because of that, or maybe he was cast out because he fought against basically the oppression/abuse he received as an omen or misbegotten. And because Miquella was so kind, so compassionate, because he actually welcomed all peoples, which you can see in his Haligtree when you go there, I still believe that he is here to fight for the people who are here. But again, I also believe that there is an ulterior motive somewhere. I don't believe Miquella is evil, at all, but I do think that he is clever, and I do think he's manipulative, and I do think there is a reason that he leverages love in order to get what he wants, and I am very excited to see what that means for us, the player, and for Miquella, the character. I really hope it doesn't mean he's going to be a final boss fight and we're going to have to kill him, but, all things are possible right now, and I am very excited. I know you all are as well. Thanks for coming here, analyzing the trailer with me, and I hope you got something out of this. Muchie out.